This is the Counselling Insights Podcast, a podcast to help you develop your own insights and practices as you listen to Vicki Enns connect with counselors and helping professionals about their work, their passions, and their strategies.
Welcome to another episode of the Counselling Insights Podcast. My name is Vicki Enns, and I am your host. Joining me today is Haley Landry, who will tell us about the Social Circus mental health program that she is involved with. Haley Landry's first time inside a circus tent was around age 12. She was never the same again after that, in a good way. Through her youth into adulthood, Haley has found joy in the worlds of theater and gymnastics, an intersection where some say circus people can be found. In 2012, Haley was invited to join Look Up Theatre's Toronto-based mental health social circus troupe as a participant under the tutelage of the great Angola Murdoch. Since then, her role has expanded from student to professional performer, coach, and social circus facilitator in the Ontario circus community and beyond. She continues to develop and share skills across multiple disciplines, namely as an aerialist, a stilt walker, and acrobat who occasionally juggles for fun. Haley is constantly fascinated by circus, its history and evolution, how society struggles to define it, and most of all, as a tool for storytelling and empowerment. In today's conversation, we explore the world of social circus and the opportunities that it creates for growing confidence, positive self-esteem, and deep relationships. Haley shares her story from struggling to cope with depression to feel healthy in body and mind, and now finding herself mentoring and supporting others in the social circus. And together, we will notice all the many parallels between the world of social circus and the goals that we often strive for in our counseling roles. All right, welcome, Haley. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Vicki.
I'm really excited for this conversation. We've met and chatted a little bit online before this, and so I'm really looking forward to getting to talk to you again and for our listeners to hear about you and about this idea of social circus and what it all is. Yeah,
it's great to be here, and our first chats have had great vibes, so happy to be here with you again.
Awesome. So in your bio, you talk about this intersection of theater and gymnastics is where some circus people can be found. And so, of course, today there's another intersection we're talking about, that there's this additional overlap with promoting, you talk about empowerment and promoting mental health and supporting others. And so to help us, our listeners, understand, how does circus relate to me as a counselor or helper? Tell us a little bit about what is this idea of a social circus?
I'm so glad you asked me that. So a lot of the time when people ask me that question of what does mental health and circus, what do they have to do with each other, I'll often make the comparison with a recreational circus program. So if you found yourself curious about the world of aerial circus, for example, and you walked into a recreational class, the coach might ask you how you're doing. And if you're not doing well, because of how society works, you'll say, I'm fine. And then you'll go ahead with the class. In a social circus program, we use circus as a tool for social intervention. And so the joke there about leaning in to hear how you're really doing is
Right.
how we start the program every time. And so showing up however you're doing and knowing that that's okay, and having a sense of belonging is, I think, the things I would lead with when describing what a social circus program is.
Yeah. So really emphasizing the relationality, the relationship part of it, the troupe part of the social circus mental health troupe.
Yeah. And I will say also that a big part of what differentiates a social circus program from a recreational circus class is that we, and I'm speaking specifically about our program because it's happening all over the world, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
But social circus in our context involves this amazing woman that we have in our program. She's a social worker. She's a therapist, among many other things, a trauma-informed yoga instructor. And she's present on our Tuesday meetings to facilitate a group check-in, which is always how we start. And then she's also available for one-on-one check-ins afterwards, which is very special.
Yeah.
If you've lived in the worlds of dance and circus, having that element makes it really, really special and therapeutic, really. So the aspect of the check-ins and someone who's actually certified and qualified to handle different mental health experiences and situations, and then the physical outlet of doing things that are physically challenging and getting exercise, which when you have mental health issues can be challenging. And then also because that intersection of theater and gymnastics, on a personal note, I grew up in an environment that made me feel like my emotions were too much. And all of a sudden, when I found Social Circus, I was being encouraged to put those emotions into a circus act and really bring them on stage. And all of a sudden I'm feeling, they're completely valid and worthy of sharing with the world. So that's been a lifesaver for me.
That's amazing. Well, if it's okay with you, I'd love to hear more about what you just started talking about, which is if you're willing to share a little more about your own path into this, how you found your way. And I think that'll give us a window into even more what you were just talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. My adolescent years were wrought with turbulence, as many people are.
Yeah.
And I found myself being called to the world of theater, like I said, and I was a bit of a drama kid in high school. But I also, my mental health issues also led me to use drugs to help with what I was dealing with and to self-soothe. And I wasn't really thinking about my future. I wasn't really focusing on school or even family and relationships. I was lost in a cloud of smoke, basically.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine had started going to therapy and was reaching out to different community organizations and resources. And she let me know that she had found this program. And I will say another really important pillar of Social Circus is that it's always provided at no cost to the participant. And I was a broke teenager. So a free circus program that was also, in a way, a support group. It is a support group. So, so a free program that was related to the arts and also was a space to feel like I could speak freely. All those things were kind of a perfect fit for what I needed at the time.
Yeah.
But I will say, I remember when I first showed up, Angola at the time was overseas. And I think I was put off by something about this support group. I had never been in a support group before. And and we weren't doing aerial yet, which is what really made my heart sing. And so after I first showed up, maybe after one or two sessions, I left. And the other half of the group at the time, who was facilitating, Emily, she reached out to me. She called my phone and she said to me, I think you're a really good fit for this group, and we haven't seen you in a few weeks, and we'd love to have you back. And just that was like, whoa, I'm like being invited back into this space. They've noticed that I'm not there. And that was really special. And then when Angola finally came back to Canada, we started doing aerial, and it was just like this explosion of joy in my life. And I was going through some really dark stuff, as I described. So it meant a lot to me to be able to go there and talk about my feelings and get some physical exercise and physical activity and have a creative outlet. Like, it was unbelievable. And I was coming from all the way across the city. It took me like an hour to get there.
Oh, wow.
And over time, Angola noticed, attendance is sometimes spotty in a group of people with mental health issues. And she noticed that I was really showing up regularly, and then she started offering me more and more responsibility in the troupe, and that brings us into the next chapter. But that's how it started.
Yeah, and you were 18 around this time?
I was about 18 years old and troubled.
Yeah, it's amazing. And maybe just for our listeners, because you're mentioning Angola, and her name came up in the bio, and just to make the link for our listeners, and you correct anything I'm saying here, Haley, but Angola Murdoch is the director of Look Up Theater. I think began
the artistic director.
And I think she holds many titles and roles possibly, but our listeners may recognize her as the therapeutic clown, and Angola was a guest on this podcast with me. And so if anyone wants to go back and listen to that very fun conversation, that was back in August of 2024. And she's the one that got me connected to you as well. So really excited to come back to visit this world with you.
Yeah, it is very exciting. And the Social Circus program that we're talking about today is the brainchild of Angola Murdoch. And Emily Collette was also working with her when it first was created all the way back in 2009. And since then it's evolved into what it is. Thanks to many unpaid hours by Angola Murdoch, I will say. She's put in a lot of time applying for grants to keep this program running. And there have been years where we're on a shoestring budget and we're not sure how long it's going to keep going. And she's always believed in the power of this program. And I think some of my favorite moments are the moments where we're both reminded, like, oh yeah, that's why we do this, and we'll get into that later too. But my circus mama, I owe her my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, I mean, you just talked about, when you first went, and you didn't say it this way, but I imagine that might have felt, that can feel like a pretty intense to have people asking you how you are and, kind of doing that thing. And I know in our pre-conversation, you mentioned to me, Haley, that in your adolescence that you had actually tried counseling a couple times, but I think that your words were, it didn't stick. And I'm curious, like, what do you think was different? I mean, there were so many things probably that was different, but do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like, what's your own theory for yourself of why this in particular was a different and better fit for you than maybe a more traditional counseling?
Thinking back to the experiences that I had, oh, there you are. Hi. Thinking back to the experiences I had with counseling before Social Circus, I think it was a mix of not finding a great fit, and also just not having the vocabulary and just the timing, At one point I remember going to a hypnotherapist and she said that my frontal lobe wasn't finished developing yet. So give it time.
I bet you loved hearing that.
And that was, I think, the one thing that really did stick. I was like, yeah, okay. My meat computer is not finished developing, so I'll stick around until at least then, and then see how it is, how it's going.
Okay.
And other than that, I think it was a mix of just not finding a good fit and not having the right vocabulary. And then having, this is a cute anecdote, I think. So in my bio, I say that my first time in a circus tent was at age 12.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my dad the other day. I was like, yeah, remember you took me to that show and we didn't even know that I was going to be a circus person one day. And he was like, I knew. It's like, what? He's like, there were signs.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I think he's joking, but in that sense, Social Circus was just the perfect fit for me, to slowly start getting more comfortable talking about my mental health and finding the vocabulary and feeling comfortable with being in a room of people that are all talking about their mental health. And so it's just been such a blessing.
Oh, that's neat. Well, and just as you said that, it made me think, when you say finding a vocabulary, I'm wondering if and maybe this is, I'm guessing, maybe this is something what your dad was meaning, is that for you maybe talked through movement, right? Like having something that you could express through your body, maybe that was an important part of it. As I think it often is for so many people.
Getting out of the head and into the body is definitely something that I hear over and over again, that we're all, as participants in the group, I have one participant that says they're aiming for head empty. That's what they're trying to go for.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something earlier that really stuck out, where you said, when you were describing first starting and you hadn't started doing aerials yet, and then you said, because that's really what makes your heart sing, right? So love to hear more about that from you at some point in this conversation too. But I think that is such a magic combo, right? When you're able to, for any of us, I think, if we're lucky enough to find that sense of connection and relationality you're describing, and have your heart sing, find joy and passion.
What a gift,
Yeah. And no wonder it became maybe something you wanted to keep going back to at that point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, can you walk us through, and whether you want to talk about yourself a little bit more, Haley, or maybe some of the, I think now you've been part of this for quite a long time. And so you also have seen a lot of other people join and see their journeys through it. And so just curious if you can describe for us some of the ways that you have found, either for yourself or you see for others, that how does this benefit mental health? I mean, you've already been talking about it. It's being to express feelings. It's maybe being able to just have that sense of connection. But yeah, what are some of the connections you see with how this benefits mental health?
Yeah, I will say there's no limit to the benefits of just having a place where you feel like you belong, right? Like whether you're able to climb the silks or whether you're able to juggle, like whatever your skill level is when you walk in, you're welcome because there's room for everybody in the circus.
Mm-hmm.
And having a sense of belonging in a world that often feels divisive, it's so therapeutic. I will also say, and this is especially relevant for me right now, but I've seen other people in the group as well start to just become like feel called to more healthy lifestyle choices because they want to get stronger, because they want to get better at circus, but then also because it bleeds into other areas of, the positive ripples of choosing to be more physically active. And like I said, when I first started in the group, I was doing a lot of drugs. And after a few years, I think it's not just the circus group, but that, like I said, that sense of belonging, it ripples. And so I can now say I'm living a sober life, and it hasn't been a linear path. But I've gone from being a chronic marijuana abuser to actually wanting to stop smoking. And that was a huge thing, wanting to be a better friend to myself because I was being treated in such a friendly way by the people around me in this group. It's a very warm and inviting space. And also there's no pressure. And I will say, I'll wrap up the answer on this being that in social circus, one of the pillars of social circus is that, sure, you can come to a workshop and learn how to juggle, but if you've also learned, patience and asking for help and not giving up and all the other elements that are bigger than juggling, like they're all part of feeling like you've been successful at something and trying something new. Like there's so many, we get really heavy into the metaphor when we're in our creation phase because the metaphors between circus and mental health are so beautiful as well. So I could go on.
Yeah. Well, let me pick up on that just a little bit, because as the idea of metaphor that you're mentioning, because as I was getting my head ready for our conversation today, I went back on the website and found the film that's there. There's a 40-minute film there, so if anyone wants to go check that out. And I saw you in there, and I saw several of your troop mates in there.
Thanks for watching, Vicky.
Yeah. Well, and I was so struck by, so much of it. But when you talk, I think if I was reading the metaphor correctly, I think it's you. They were kind of all wrapped up like you're in a cocoon, right? And then that kind of that metaphor of the chrysalis and kind of coming out of the cocoon. But I think it was so that really hit me, and just the visual of the movement and I'd love to hear your description of that. But what I was noticing, like just like being all bound up in the silks, I might not have the terminology right, but and the cloth and it just, it was really moving and quite the expression. So that struck me as a real powerful metaphor. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. It's, there's just endless metaphor in circus, it seems, but, my piece in that documentary was actually a straitjacket.
Oh,
there's another piece
right.
of another dark-haired beauty, Laura. Shout out to Laura. She does the chrysalis and the butterfly metaphor. And mine was with a straitjacket. It's pretty intense, but there's a lot of metaphor there. And when I finally get the straitjacket off, I'm not ready to let go of it right away, which I think was a big message for me. The underlying message connected to addiction and how we have that complicated relationship with the ways that we choose to soothe ourselves. So Yeah, it's definitely one of my proudest accomplishments, that
Yeah.
documentary,
Oh, it's
being a part of
beautiful.
it and the team
Yeah.
that came
Yeah.
together to make it happen. It was such a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
Freneticus, that's the name of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So many beautiful stories told in that 40
Mhm.
minutes. Can you talk a little bit about just learning, like just some of the, like to you, like juggling is just something you maybe do every day, to relax or something like that, or like being an aerialist. And so, can you talk a little bit about what that was like, even just to begin to learn those movements and maybe, I don't know, like, I imagine everyone approaches this differently. And like you just said, people maybe come, you don't necessarily have to have experience, but like when I think about it, I've never done any of those things. And so it both seems exciting, but also, there's a fear factor, and that's maybe part of, there's heights involved. I noticed there's a lot of hanging upside down. There's,
Spinning.
yeah, yeah. A lot of being, I think someone in the film, there's a quote, oh, I might not have it here, but I love this quote where it said something about what could be more grounding than soaring off the ground, right? Like I thought that was just such a great thing that someone in the film
Yeah.
said. So yeah, can you just talk a little bit about what you remember maybe for yourself or what you see for others of just learning some of these movements and activities that
Totally.
most of
Yeah.
us don't do every day.
Especially because I've been lucky enough to be doing it long enough that now I can teach as well.
Yeah.
So I have to
Yeah.
reach back into what it was like for me at the beginning in order to have empathy for my students.
Yeah.
And I will say a lot of it starts out in letting go of ego and being okay with looking silly at first.
Yeah.
Like the first few times you try to juggle is going to be frustrating, obviously. And I don't think I'm alone in this, in the sense that when I first try something new, if I'm not good at it right away, I get real upset. And that's
Yeah.
so silly
Yeah.
when, especially in
And so
circus, when
common.
you're like
Yeah.
looking at
Yeah.
something so far beyond what your body is actually designed to do.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I'll say often too that one of my favorite things about circus is surprising yourself. So you'll see someone else do it, and sometimes I'll think, oh, I could never do that. And then within a few months, you're taking steps towards doing it, and maybe even already there.
Yeah.
So when I first started, I was already pretty physically strong. I won't say fit because I wasn't actually getting that much physical activity, but I seemed to have a lot of muscle tone just naturally. And so it boosted my ego that I could get
Yeah.
myself up into the air.
Yeah.
And then it didn't take long for me to realize, oh, it's not just about being strong enough to get into the air. It's about having the discipline to condition those, smaller muscle groups that allow you to actually look good while you're doing it.
Right.
And so that was very humbling. And then a lot of circus looks nice, but it doesn't feel great at first. It doesn't, it's painful, in fact. So
Yeah,
I'll often say,
I
like,
bet.
circus hurts. And it's a small price to pay, I think, for the glorious journey of a circus person, but getting used to that physical discomfort and sometimes even leaning into it.
Yeah.
When, especially as a retired pothead, when you're smoking weed, you just want to feel comfortable all the time. So that was a big kind of recognizing some cognitive dissonance, or like breaking
Yeah.
away from that part of myself that's like, no, we need to be physically comfortable all the time.
Yeah.
And then noticing my progress over the weeks and feeling myself getting stronger, even with like things like juggling, and then with more a metaphor that I really love with our group stuff. Like if you're doing for a layman, I'd say making a human pyramid, or like partner balancing stuff that we do is a lot of learning to trust each other and communicate, and being open to things that you don't know about, right? Like being teachable. So yeah, that's just a taste of what it's like to get started in the circus life.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And it just reinforces what you were saying before, in describing your own story, and just seeing the benefit for mental health is, again, the desire to be, the desire to feel stronger and to be able to do these things and to learn all those nuances like you talked about, and probably to have it be less painful. That's always a good motivator too. Yeah. But then it provides a different kind of motivation for just taking care of yourself differently, and And it's interesting because in my own counseling work with folks, we often will talk about, like sometimes, like if anyone's struggling with self-esteem or struggle, that's a really hard thing to just try to switch, like make yourself change in your head, right? And so sometimes we'll talk with folks about, when we treat someone well, it naturally starts to build a sense of that we start to like that person. And so we can, or appreciate that person, right? And so it's a way we can apply that to ourselves too, right? Like if we start to treat ourselves well or take care of ourselves well, it builds a sense of more appreciation or self-compassion too. And so it's neat to hear that parallel on so many levels.
I love the
with
way
what
you
you're
put
talking
that, Vicky. That's going to be one of my gold nuggets from this
Ah.
experience. Wow. I love that. Yeah. And that brought something else up for me too, where right now I've just been describing the physical aspect of getting into circus, but the social circus aspect, and I'm remembering this fondly now, is when I first joined, I think I was very self-centered. And because part of the group is starting in that circle and listening to every other person in the circle describe what they're going through right now and how they're doing. Right. And often it's added by with some silly prompt, like if you were a cookie, what kind of cookie would you be? We try to keep some lightness to the check-in. Yeah. And I think I definitely built and have been building skills in active listening because of being a part of that check-in circle at the beginning of the session. So that's also pretty valuable, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that maybe links to, the next thing I wanted to ask you, which is as you've already been mentioning, you've been doing this a while and your role has been shifting over the years. And so, and like you said, you're now in a position to be teaching and facilitating this for others as well. And so I'm curious, what are you learning? I mean, you can talk about just how you're feeling about those different roles, but also what do you feel like you're learning about yourself now that might have is different from when you first started?
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot. It's been, one of the funniest things is there's some participants in the group that have been in the group so long that I was participants alongside them. I was a participant alongside them. And now I'm facilitating and they're still participants. Right. And so that dynamic has been really interesting to navigate. I will say Sandy, our social worker, has been a really good ear for that when I need to talk about it. And I've gone from, I call Angola my circus mama. And now I'm not going to get emotional, Vicky. I've got participants calling me their circus mama. That's crazy. That's wild.
Yeah.
So, going from, we all work on our self-image throughout our lives. And my self-image, I think, has really been shaped by this experience in the sense that I recognize that I have something of value to offer to my students, even if they're stronger than me. That's been a big one too. If I have students that are stronger than me and have skills that I don't have, and my imposter syndrome starts coming in. So grappling with that and just feeling so much love for my participants. It almost comes from like a kind of maternal place. Sometimes I don't have kids, but I'm like, these are my babies. And I just feel so much pride and seeing some of the younger participants that are in a similar place to where I was when I joined and really feeling how important it is for the group. Like if there's ever a week where I have something else going on, like I'm sick or I've got a gig and I can't facilitate, I am so acutely aware now, like, oh no, someone needs to fill in for me. Someone needs to, like, this group is really important to these young people. And if it doesn't happen, like tonight, it will affect people, and so feeling really that my job matters is so beautiful. And I feel so lucky to have that job that I really enjoy and that I'm working with and for people and serving people that I feel a lot of love for. And it's crazy to have gone from being a participant to now this and like the poster child, it really does make a difference.
That's really amazing. Mm-hmm. Are there any other stories you want to tell us about some of these participants you're seeing come through, whether in general or just some different ways you've seen how people have been impacted by being part of social circus?
Yeah, I will say, as children, seeing kids like put on shows in the living room for their parents,
Yeah.
for a lot of kids, that's like where they first discover their inner
Right.
performer.
Right.
And some kids, maybe that's not a part of their childhood experience.
Right.
And they make it all the way to being a teenager and they're like, oh no, I'm not a performer.
Right.
And then they're given this space where not only are we inviting you to tell your story and to show off the skills you've been working on, like you're really putting that idea into someone's head that what they have is worthy of going on a stage and sharing with an audience. And I've seen time and time again the magic that has in people's lives. And then also like feeling like you're a part of a show with your castmates too. Like it brings you together like a little family. So I will say in general, seeing how that affects people is so beautiful. We've got one participant right now in the group that has is dealing with gender identity challenges and all the things that come along with that. And their family, from what I've heard from them, has not been very supportive, and they're feeling like estranged from their family. And so when they come into the group where we're all able to hold that darkness that each of us is dealing with in whatever form it takes, but also to get silly with each other and have fun with each other and celebrate each other's small victories. I'm all about celebrating those small victories. We're so under celebrated as a species, as a society,
Right.
And so coming together to celebrate each other, but not ignore the bad shit that we're dealing with.
Right.
Excuse my language. I think that's a big part of it. Like looking at traditional circus is all about the ta-da moment and the big smile and not what's going on behind the curtain. In a social circus program, we're looking at the things that make us great, but we're not shying away from the things that we're struggling with. And I think that's a really, really big part of what transforms the people that are part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is reminding me, if it's okay to refer back to the film, because I had jotted down several things, and I'm pretty sure, pardon me, because there are many different stories in that film. And so I think this was you talking. And so I'm going to quote you here, Haley, where I think you were in the film, you were talking about why this was important to you. And you said, sometimes it's the shock value, taking difficult emotions I was feeling and expressing them through movement. And that just made so much sense to me. But I wanted to invite you to talk about that a little bit, like just something about doing, like both for the participant themselves, like just as we've been discussing, like engaging with something that might feel really challenging, might carry that physical strain that somehow provides a release for some emotional strain, I would imagine. But it's also, there's maybe an interaction with people witnessing it. Basically, you can ignore all my rambling stuff. I was just really interested in what you said, which was sometimes the shock value, taking difficult emotions I was feeling and expressing through movement. How I was reading that was, how I related to that was just that it's an intense enough, somehow the expression feels big enough to actually hold whatever it is you're feeling. That's how I was reading it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What came up for me hearing you say the question again was actually more about the creation process. So in a session, we usually have skill and strength building, and then the creation process, and then preparing for the show. So when you've never made a show before and you're being told like, yeah, this is what the show's going to be about, or actually with the youth-led engagement model, it's more, what do you want the show to be about? But we have the understanding that it's going to be about our mental health experiences because it's a mental health focus group. And then being reassured that like, yeah, it's okay to be talking about this stuff. In fact, it's going to be really beneficial for the audience too. And that's something that I remember being like having reaffirmed for me, that this is actually so beneficial for audiences that are coming from a society that stigmatizes mental health and mental health issues. I know for myself, my mother's Jamaican. I come from a family where it's not talked about a lot, and it's cycle breakers in each generation are slowly getting more comfortable talking about that stuff. But really having to trust Angola, or in other years where she would invite someone else to be the dramaturge, having to trust that process and know that even if it's shocking subject matter, that's what makes a good show sometimes, and that's what impacts people, and that vulnerability can be shocking, but it's also what makes audiences fall in love with your story when you're being honest. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, that makes really good sense. And it sounds like you've come to really just know, because you maybe witness it over and over again within your own group, but also maybe with your audiences, that even though it might seem shocking, or like you said before, like, I love how you said out in the normie world, maybe people aren't used to just jumping into these conversations. And yet you just know that it's so relatable, right? Not that everyone has the same experiences, but we all have mental health. We all do. And we all might have challenges around that at times. And so, it's just a very relatable thing, as well as the difficulty in maybe expressing it. So I wanted, this is maybe a silly question, but this was in our pre-conversation where I noticed that at some point in our conversation, you used circus as a verb, and you talked about circusing, and it gave me a little flashback, because I remember Angola using clowning as a verb, and we had a fun conversation about that. And so I'm just noticing that I try now to work it into a sentence myself, but I have a hard time because I don't have the background for it. But I'm curious for you, do you find, do you feel like you bring circusing into other parts of your life? Like when you're not up in the aerials or juggling or leading a group? Or how does it show up in other parts of your life?
Yeah, I do think I can't help but bring circus into every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
And I mean, what that looks like can be, leaning in when someone says they have a silly question, or engaging with a sense of play. And circus is also very much about taking calculated risks and understanding safety, and knowing what risks you're taking and what can go wrong and how to mitigate risk. I'm very lucky that my circus mama is a super, super stickler for safety. So that's always made my mom feel safer knowing that. And so, I mean, in a more practical way, as a rigger, I'm great with knots and rope. And I became an arborist for a short period in my life. So that was funny. Seeing the ways that those skills transfer. I also wanted to mention, like, the way levity has been, like, increasingly a priority for me. When I first started in circus, I was very, like, edgy, like needed to be really showing how depressed I was all the time. And so my performances reflected that. And every year Angola would come to us and ask, what do you want your show to be like? What do you want your act to convey? And for the first 5-6 years, I think it was always depression, always darkness. And then one year something just shifted. And I think that was also, the way circus was, affecting all parts of my life. I was starting to make money with circus. I was getting jobs outside of social circus that were paying my bills. I was like, what? This is crazy. And so that year, I think, was the first year that I decided, I'm going to take inspiration from a part of myself that isn't dark. I'm going to take inspiration from parts of myself that are more fascinated by the natural world. And it's been interesting to watch both sides of that, like how my life is affecting my circus, how circus is affecting my life. And it's been pretty juicy.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that by really giving it sounds like in the beginning it was it gave you a direct way to connect with maybe the part of you that was holding a lot of depression and just holding all those experiences, but then it allowed you to open up and meet all these other parts of you as well.
Yeah, and having those parts of me validated, I think, allowed me to move on to different inspiration. Yeah.
So, is there anything else you want to tell us about just the process of the social circus? I really love that you you did give us a little glimpse into a bit of the creation process, but just curious is there anything else about it that we haven't talked about that you'd like our listeners to understand about how does this thing work?
Well, because I could go on for hours, I have to be careful, but the creation process, I mean, it's pretty beautiful to watch different types of personalities and what circus disciplines appeal to them the most.
Right. Yeah.
So, for example, we are very focused on aerial, but we've also got, object manipulation includes juggling as well as other props.
Right.
And people who struggle with attention deficit and autism spectrum related like symptoms often turn out to be really good jugglers for some reason. I'm not sure what the science is there, but there seems to be a connection. Okay. And then, making sure that new participants get a taste of everything, right? So the different types of aerial equipment, the different types of object manipulation, the different types of partner balancing and acro and stilting, everything. And then giving them the choice and really asking themselves, like, well, which of those things brought me the most joy, and like getting really curious about that before they choose what they want to specialize in. So that's really awesome to see, different personality types and what they reach for.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I'm loving the connection as I listen to you, because again, I don't have any background in circusing, but as you talk about that, I'm just really relating to, like with clients I'm working with in a counseling setting, we're often talking about just like connecting more with kind of that bottom up learning about oneself. Like, and so when you talked about like discovering through trying different things, noticing what brings a person joy, right? And so being able to make those connections kind of through movement and through doing things and trying things first, just really makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And because it's a Counseling Insights podcast, I will say that same skill to go from being told I'm oversensitive, I'm too dramatic, and feeling like I can't trust my own emotions, to being in that journey of like really listening to what I enjoy. And then more recently, getting hooked up with an awesome therapist. And the process of interviewing therapists, I realized, oh yeah, this is therapeutic in the sense that I'm having to ask myself which of those 3 therapists that I met with was the best fit. And like it's just so amazing to look back on Haley that didn't trust her feelings to Haley that's now really listening. And when you listen, the inner voice will actually start to talk to you again. So that's been a cool thing to observe.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you've provided the perfect segue to, I wanted to invite you to spend a little time with me to ponder. So for our listeners, who perhaps many of them, like myself, aren't involved in circus, but we might look into it. But to think about, like, what do you think are the parallels? Like, what are the takeaways for someone who even isn't doing this? And I mean, you just gave a really great one, whatever activity, whatever way someone plugs into practicing to listen to themselves, what a gift that is when they start to trust that. But yeah, do you have other thoughts about that? Like when you think about what are other parallels or other takeaways that someone could learn from, of course, by doing this, but even by listening to our conversation or watching the film on the website, what do you think are some parallels for counseling helpers?
The first thing that came up for me is, that idea of listening to the inner voice, but also listening to the body. Like right now, I'm in Toronto, the seasons are changing. Usually for me, the changing of the seasons is pretty heavy, and my body can feel things differently. And so when people come into the group and maybe they're in their mind, they were really hoping to do a lot physically that day. And then they get there and they're like, oh, I think I might have to take it easy, and learning to not be hard on themselves about that. I think that is also a really great takeaway to manage your expectations of yourself and be kind and gentle to yourself. Definitely skills that I watch the participants practicing in the group. Mainly because if you go and do aerial when you don't have the energy to come down safely, that's I mean, that's why we use mats, but it's also great to understand that about yourself before you go up.
Right.
Yeah. What was the question? Gold nuggets for even non-circus people?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I can offer one, and if you think of another one, by all means. But I mean, I think you were just speaking to it, but I just want to underline, in what you were just talking about and the story you told earlier. Like you mentioned, being so grateful that your circus mama Angela is so safety conscious, right? And as you were talking about that, it just struck me that like what you're doing and with the circus, social circus, it illustrates so vividly, how those two go together. Like by being so attuned and careful, and of course you would be in a setting like circus, but being so attuned and careful about safety, it allows all of you to take such risks, right? But calculated risks, like thoughtful risks, right? And I I love thinking about the combination of those things, right? And I think that is such a parallel for people in whatever way they're supporting others in their life journeys, is how do we find that sense of feeling safe enough, connected enough, or knowing we've got a safe place to land, even if, just as a relationship or literally as a mat on the floor, that then that allows you to go swing up high, right? And take these risks that you might not be sure about.
We also start, especially when we have a new participant joining the group, we start out with what we call a comfort agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I've started teaching in a recreational space as well. And even in the recreational spaces, they call it an us list. And it's a list of principles that we decide on as a group, that these are the things that we can all do to make each other feel more comfortable and safe in the space. And so things like that. And it's a living document, so it can evolve over time if things change, if people, one of them is keep your sarcasm respectful, or like swearing is okay. We're okay with swearing. It's a group with at least, you have to be at least 16 to 18 years old to join. If you're not comfortable with swearing anymore, you can say that, and we're going to reevaluate our comfort agreement. So like things like, consent and how consent can change. I remember once going into a school with a circus workshop, and it was like 14-year-old girls that didn't even know the word consent yet. And we were talking about it in a circus context, like introducing these contexts or concepts in through circus can also allow us to, find playfulness and understanding. And I've done circus workshops in like corporate environments with like nurses that were going to be working in schools. Like there's so many ways that we can benefit from some of these ideas.
Yeah. So as we round the corner of our conversation, I want to check in with you about like what's anything coming up next for you, or like what are you doing these days, or are you continuing with the teaching and the facilitating? Any more films in the plans? What's going on?
Yeah, well, I'm so lucky that I am in this current climate able to make all of my living from circus. So the social circus program is definitely the most rewarding part of that. And we meet twice a week. And then I'm lucky to have space in my schedule for performance as well. So when I get performance gigs, that's always a blessing. I do quite a bit of stilt walking these days, which is a fun side gig. And the film that we made was actually an interesting result of lockdown. You'll hear Angola talk about it a lot too, where dance on film is not the same as circus on film. And when COVID first happened, we were all kind of wondering, well, how are we going to make this work? So that documentary was the fruit of our labor in hoping that circus on film would be just as compelling as circus live, but we are more focused on live performances these days because it's permitted. So our last show I'm very proud of because we came up with a very silly name for it. It was about seasonal depression. And one of the participants came up with the name Cirque du Soul Ache.
Du Soul Ache. Yeah, that's great.
And so leaning into seasonal depression, we had bathrobes covering our costumes, like we're, at home getting cozy with our mugs. We served tiger tea, which is this lovely Bengal spice tea. We served that to the audience members, and we had them filling out prompts like, how do you stay cozy? And what are some of the ways that you enjoy winter? And so now that we're getting ready for winter again, really focusing on self-care through seasonal depression and things like that. Our social worker is also a therapist. She's amazing at bringing the focus to things like that in a gentle way. And also making sure that our participants have more support than just the group, right? That they have other supports in place to keep them stable through the winter months.
Yeah, that sounds really great. So, I mean, now that you've described that, it reminded me I should make sure to get you to let our listeners know, because I'm sure there's people saying, well, I want to come to one of these shows. So you're based in Toronto, right? But you did mention, and so anyone who's lucky enough to live around there might be able to catch a show. But you mentioned that this is something that happens all around the world. Can you say a bit about that? Like if people are curious about finding out about social circus?
Our group is a social circus under the umbrella of the Look Up Theater non-for-profit organization. It's a circus theater organization, and that's what Angola is artistic director of. We have partnered with another organization in Quebec called Circus, and they run a national network of social circus groups across Canada called Circus. So we're part of it. There's a group in Alberta, in Calgary, called Green Fools. There's one in Halifax. There's one in Nunavut. There's a couple of them in Nunavut. There's some in BC. There are social circuses all across Canada, and we've all formed a network. And because, especially in Quebec, they get great funding for circus programming. So they've actually had gatherings where we get to bring a few people from each group across Canada to come together and have these gatherings where, we don't even have to explain what social circus is because they're doing it already. And we're all doing the same or similar things in different parts of the country. I know Angola has done work with an amazing organization in South Africa called Zip Zap Circus. And they engage with youth who've been born HIV positive and have often been ostracized quite violently from their communities. And then they get to build skills in circus and perform for their community. And all of a sudden, some of the stigma and some of that ostracization is maybe massaged a little bit by the wonder. And that's just one example. But they, I believe there's a social circus in Palestine. There's a social circus in, I've heard of another one. Oh, in Ethiopia, they have social circus. Like it's a global phenomenon.
That's really
and they're not all focused on mental health, but they often will have a demographic that is marginalized that they're aiming to uplift through social circus practice.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. And we'll include some links in the show notes for this episode to find some of these organizations you've been mentioning, and so that people, if they're curious to find out more, can help them find their way. And I'm hoping too, just by listening to you, even sharing some of those examples, that there's just some creativity maybe sparked with some of our listeners. I think there's ways we can, even just bringing small elements of whatever's in our own capacity of this. I hope there's some inspiration. I think there probably will be for folks listening.
Love that.
Well, Haley, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the podcast today. This was absolutely delightful. It's great to hear your story and absolutely inspiring to hear about the social circus and difference it's making in so many people's lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vicky. I can't wait to hear about your circus journey one day.
Hey, I really like the stilting. I don't know if that's the right way to terminology, but when I saw that, I thought that I would love to do that. So maybe I'll come do a stilt.
Way more comfortable than stilettos.
Oh yeah. That's good to know. Good to know. All right. I'll look up for a workshop on that maybe sometime.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Haley. And to you, our listeners, thank you for joining us. I hope you have enjoyed this conversation and come back for the next one in a month's time. And so until then, stay well and be curious.
Looking for free resources and training in the areas of trauma, counseling, and mental health? Be sure to check out our website at www.ctrinstitute.com.